All right, I am very excited for this today. We have Andy live from Queensland, Australia, and me from Denver, Colorado. Today, we are going to break every belief you thought you knew about back pain. So, any limitation you think you've had, anything a doctor or a PT or your own self doubt has told you, listen to this before thinking that you can't get out of your pain or you can't get back to doing crazy athletic things because Andy here just went through some of the most intense physical feats that pretty much anyone would go through in an MMA camp and actually just came back from Serbia and had a successful win in this tournament. So yeah, we're going to tell you a little bit about his story and his journey out of the back pain trenches because I can tell my story 100 times, but his is even cooler because he went from the dark ages of back pain to literally fighting MMA. So really excited to introduce Andy today. Thanks for agreeing to do this. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to sharing this because it's certainly something that I it would have really helped me in the beginning as well. Where these kind of resources weren't really there, and it was hard to find athletes or people that could reassure you back then. It was a little while ago, but yeah, this kind of stories, would have helped so much. So yeah, happy to help. Hope it helps other people, even if they just take a little bit of hope from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think this will be really inspirational, especially for people who want to be more athletic or don't want to accept their physical limitations because of their back pain. Because if we rewind 5, 6 years ago for you, like you want to kind of explain the situation you were in 5, 6 years ago and some of the things you heard and some of the thoughts in your head at the time, and then we'll kind of get into your hero's journey story and then what you just recently did.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So I'll give a little brief introduction, really, of who I am. So I'm Andy Stanway. I'm based on the Sunshine Coast, Queensland, Australia. Lovely place on the East Coast. Um, and obviously, I grew up in the UK. You might tell from my accent. And we moved over here when I was young. When I was about 13 years old, and I bounced back and forth in that time. But I've spent a long time out here. I'm a citizen out here. But so I'm an aspiring athlete, aspiring MMA fighter. I'm trying to be the best I can possibly be. I was lucky enough to know from a young age what I wanted to do. I discovered Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu when I was about 15 years old, and just thought, this is it for me. I love this. This is my sport. So jumped full steam ahead into those sports. And yeah, I guess I from that age of training and going all the way through, I racked up quite a successful amateur career and had a few good little milestones, a few accolades there. And I'd say by the age of 23, I was poised very well for a very successful and long career ahead. When I was 23, I just got my black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'd already competed in two different world championship tournaments and done well. I'd fought in Vegas, I'd fought in Bahrain. Um, I was a champion on the local scene, a two weight class champion on the local scene, a welterweight and middleweight amateur champion. Yeah, I'd done quite a lot. I was doing well as an amateur, and then I went back to the UK to train because I've got friends out there and connections out there who could introduce me to other bodies, other looks, different style of training, and yeah, that I went over for a training trip, went back over there, and to prepare for the Bahrain competition, and that's when the serious back issues started. So yeah, that's where things really kicked off. For me, I the back issues. I always had back issues. So the actual back issues started when I was 15 years old. I was playing soccer. So yeah, don't you wouldn't expect it from soccer. I don't want to be disrespectful to soccer. I think, but that is you wouldn't expect major back injuries from soccer. But those athletes, they do train hard. But it was just from at the end of training sessions, we had a coach who was just trying to condition us, kind of tough love kind of thing. Get more reps, you can do more. Trying to toughen us up for the game, which is fair enough. But I just remember we were doing leg raises and had muddy boots on, but we were kids. We weren't taught correct technique, and many of us didn't have the core strength needed to gain the benefit from that exercise and be protected enough. So there I was, just we're all lifting our legs, and instead of looking at my feet and having my abs engaged, I had that hollow back, that curve in the lower back, and all that pressure through that lower back. And funnily enough, out of that team, that football team, three of us ended up having back issues that were pretty serious. Some of us took it a long, long time. That was the beginning of it for me. I remember doing those, and then maybe a week or 2 weeks later, as I'm running around, this just pain in my ass cheek. Wow, like someone's throwing a dart in my butt. Like, why is my butt hurting? What's this all about? I remember complaining about it, and then going to see a physio, and he's like, "Yeah, you've hurt your back." I'm like, "No, no, no, it's in my butt cheek." And he's like, "Yeah, you've hurt your back." And then that was the beginning of being taught that and understanding that sciatica, and so that's where that started. Just at 15, and at that age, you go through a quick growth spurt. You're not exactly, you don't, you're growing quickly. You don't have the strength. You don't have that solidness to protect you. Your body's changing so quickly. So I know it started with sciatica, but I also had like a pubic symphysitis issue. I think my hips hiked up, and the actual pubic bone was shifting. So that created a lot of problems. I had a lot of hip issues, at some point. So that was the beginning of just some back issues, but it wasn't groundbreaking. It wasn't anything that completely rolled me, but it was at the time. It felt shocking at the time. It was a young kid, and not everyone gets injured at that age, so it was very frustrating. But that was kind of the end of my soccer career. I stopped that. I never took it super seriously. It was just a bit of fun for me, but I did enjoy the game, but I wasn't a fanatic or anything. But then I found Thai boxing and jiu-jitsu, just later on, when I was at the same age, about 15, just about to turn 16 years old. And I fell in love with that. So I started training and getting stuck into that. But then I would have small little flare-ups of things. So one of the worst one early on was 6 months off. I had to have about 6 months off with grappling, which is, that now is a cakewalk. That's absolutely nothing to me now. That's just a brief holiday in comparison to what I've been forced to take off. But at the time, that was huge. I remember, again, that was massive. 6 months, and all my friends and training partners were all just getting better and better, and I'm missing out. That was frustrating. But yeah, small issues. So to kind of fast forward back to when I was 23, there were a lot of issues there, and they were kind of common things. When you're young, you think you're invincible. You can run at the wall 1,000 times, and you don't think anything's going to hurt you. So there are a few occasions where just pure stupidity got me as well. I think when I was 18, I was lifting loads. Really trying to get strong at that point, and it did. Putting a lot of size at that point. It was bigger then than I am now, but but I was just training like a bodybuilder. But I racked up a lot of weight. I think it was like 200 kilos or something on a Smith machine. And I remember in the last rep, just slowing to a stop and just going like this. And they're like, oh, you racked the bar, laid on the floor for half an hour just in agony. I could barely breathe. And then you end up crawling down the stairs, getting in the car, driving home, and being in bed for a week, which is just.
Yeah, I know
madness.
that movie. And that was, yeah, so you had a bunch of like little episodes when between 15, 23, but you're still like kind of competing, you're still on the rise. And then what happened around 23? Because you're 29 now, right?
Yep, that's it. 29 now, so 23. Thanks for keeping me on track. I'm going to need
Yeah,
you.
no.
Yeah, so lots of little issues, and you could consider them to be decent issues because it would start with nothing in comparison to this. And if I'd have known and got myself strong enough, I could have prevented this possibly. But that's it. Hindsight, is 2020. That's what they say. So at 23, poised, doing well, went back to the UK to train for Bahrain, and I hurt my back in the camp for Bahrain. And I remember I couldn't grapple properly, and because I was out of my normal circumstances, I was in the UK and didn't have my regular training partners that I could really trust to look after me. I only had my coach, so I did like my coach who actually he brought me up through all the belts and through all my training. He started me in MMA in Australia, but he eventually moved back to the UK. So I was back there and training with him. So I had him to grapple with, but not really anyone else. So I had to abandon the grappling in that training camp. I just did loads of Thai boxing and got in really good Thai boxing shape, and still managed to go out and compete. But the back issue was there, I'd hurt it, and then I came back from Bahrain. Had a couple of fights out there, and did well in that competition. Was happy with that. Won both my fights, but couldn't continue because the doctors, wouldn't let me because my leg blew up. But I came back, and when I started, I was teaching jiu-jitsu in Northern England, a gym in Northern England, and
Mhm.
I was teaching in the mornings. It's cold in the UK, so I'd get there early and warm up a bit. But I'd be teaching things like arm bars and from mount. I just remember like anything with just a bit of flexion in there. I just feel it again and again and again. It was getting worse over time. So I thought, right, I need to have a few weeks off here, 2, 3, 4 weeks, just let this thing settle. Hopefully it'll settle, and I can come back and be all right. And yeah, I think during that time, my core softened, even softened. So the train. It's funny. The training I was doing was probably giving me some strength, but then I was aggravating this thing. But actually, that break, if anything, I think I just got a bit weaker. At the time, I was very busy. I was working 2 jobs. So I worked during the day and then I was working at night. And this night job, sometimes I come home at 2 or 3 in the morning. I've been lifting for hours, dragging heavy stuff up like cellar stairs and stuff like that. So a bit unstable and trying to carry the weight behind you. It wasn't good. You couldn't even use good form that protect you as well. You're just like lifting barrels upstairs. So I remember that aggravating me too. And I worked on a friend's job site. I think that was one of the early. I think that's what knocked a lot of things loose. I hadn't had any back issues for a long time, and I think working on that job site, I worked like a lunatic. I just wanted to be the hardest worker there. I just
Yeah.
wanted to be there.
Was that when
I told you about this.
you were wheelbarrowing then? Was that
Yeah,
your
that's it. Yeah.
mission to like be the hardest worker and do the most? Yeah, that I remember that story.
Oh man, yeah. Because I hadn't seen my friend for so many years, and he gave me, he's just like I arrived back in the UK and I had no work. So I was like, dude, can you help me out? He's like, yeah, 100%, I'll give you some work. So I was just doing some labouring work for him, he's construction. And I just decided I'm gonna treat it like a fight in a way. I'm just gonna be the hardest worker he's ever seen. And it was fun, it was a fun thing, but it was not good, not good for me. Yeah, I was just a madman. They had to like argue with me to get me to stop to have a coffee or something. I just didn't want to stop, and I was just sprinting with these wheelbarrows, picking these these massive stones. We brought down a patio, and so the thing was like heavier than me, and I'm like walking around with it lopsided, throwing it in wheel beans, and all that
Yeah.
in I should say. Just that I worked like a madman, but I remember that loosening some things up. I was breaking concrete on a driveway with one of those jackhammers. First time I'd ever used one of those. They're good for loosening things up in your back. So yeah, madness. So that hammered me, and then this other work. But anyway, I'll get back on point. So what happened? I was working, and I just remember I'd stopped the jiu-jitsu for a while just to give my back a bit of a break. And I was working these 2 jobs. And I remember just coming home after a late shift. I just remember waking up in the morning and I couldn't move. It was just like some sort of switch had been flicked and it was from day to night. Um, I couldn't flex. I couldn't flex and I couldn't extend. And even in the center, I wasn't stable. I wasn't safe. It didn't feel safe in the center. So there's virtually nowhere where I was out of pain for some reason. And it was so strange. Like even the discs swelled up. And that was the first time I'd ever felt that. The actual center of my back, the discs, they all swelled up. They were hot. They were aggravated. They were painful as hell, even to touch. Just really painful. I was like, what has happened? It was just like oh, this heavy feeling like, oh, you've done it now. You have really hurt yourself now. I didn't. All I'd done is walk up out of this bed. And it was. I don't know how or why it was that moment. I have no idea. But yeah, when it came to flexion, I lost virtually. I could barely flex. I had like such a short range of flexion before I was in agony. Just a slight tilt, extension the same, and so that was me. I was absolutely done for. I spent in the UK. Luckily, I was living with my auntie and uncle. They put me up in the UK and looked after me. Um, Thankfully, I was able to like shut down the work and spend a lot of time just resting. But I was bedridden, for a long time. And yeah, it was just utterly devastating. Just utterly devastating. You spend yeah. So being in that spot, but going in the hole, man, it was yeah, it just absolutely drags you through it. Your whole life is switched. So for me, all the things that I was doing, suddenly your whole life is switched to how much pain you're in. and your posture, essentially. Like, how long am I stood up and how am I stood up? How long am I sat down? How am I sat down? How long am I sleeping and laid down? And how long am I, how am I doing it? That it becomes like this obsessive thing that is completely unavoidable, because pain is the number one thing in your life. Then you're just always in pain and you're trying to mitigate it and reduce it. And it's very, very difficult to do. I was just eating painkillers and anti-inflammatories and wrecking my stomach. And that's it. It's just like everything else in your life is completely muffled. It's so difficult. Your relationships, everything. You've kind of got this tunnel vision, and it's you're very much focused on your own pain, which is not a great way to be. It's just awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, you said it super well. That's like what you think about day to day, hour to hour goes from like what you're doing, whatever you're doing normally. Like for you, it was like coming to like train to be a world champion in MMA, Thai boxing, and jujitsu, and your relationships and your work and everything. And then after the injury happens, it's every hour, every day, what your thoughts are just consumed by your back and your pain. And yeah, like you said, it's like, how am I standing? How am I sitting? Like it's like if anyone watching is really in the trenches, you'll know exactly what we mean. But when it's that bad, yeah, it consumes your whole thoughts. It consumes your day, and it's miserable. And yeah, and about how long were you in there, and about how long did your time off last then after that?
That's it. So really, I couldn't do anything. So I remember at the year mark, one whole year went by, and I still couldn't do anything, not even close to training. And I just remember going, all right, it's been a whole year now, and the actual pain and the level of restriction, so the restriction of movement and the pain itself had reduced by about 5%. And I'm thinking, this is me. This, this, if it's only improved this much in a whole year, how, then you start projecting, you're thinking, how many years is it going to be till I can do this? And
Mm-hmm.
as an athlete, your window's so small. It's a young man's game, as they say. So every year that's wasted is just devastating to you. And then you're projecting in the future, and you're thinking, well, am I even going to be able to? First of all, am I even ever going to be able to come back? And when I do, am I going to be too old to do this? So it's just a devastating thing to go through. And when you're super ambitious, you've got all these big goals and plans. Like, not only did I have my own goals for myself to push myself as far as I can go, because I love competing, I love fighting, and I want to see how far I can take it. Then after that, I have all the plans to open my own gym and be a coach and raise other fighters and do the whole thing. I love the MMA and the jiu-jitsu culture, and that's what I want to do. And all of that again is gone. So your identity just flashes right in front of you. It's like, who am I? What can I do? You put all your eggs in this one basket, and the basket has just been absolutely smashed. It's like, what am I going to do? There's nothing else that makes me happy. This was the love of my life, and it's been torn away from me. I can't even do it. I'm a young man, but I'm like an old man. I'm just like, it's like your youth's been stripped from you, and it's you just go into the worst spot possible. I always think of it as you're either in an upward spiral or you're in a downward spiral. Something I've noticed over the years. If you don't just stay still, you don't just stay still. When you stagnate, you start spiraling down, and you're well and truly going to that horrible guttural space in your mind. And for me, my life had been ruined. There was no more. So that was 1 year, and it would be small things like even brushing my teeth, just the movement of brushing my teeth. Or if I was cooking something, I like to cook, so that was one of the only good things that I could do for in my spare time that I'd enjoyed. So I'd be cooking different food. But I remember one of the big lapses. My partner at the time was there. One of the big lapses I had was a salt shaker just dropped. My instinct is, I always catch them. I catch things when I drop them. I do it all the time. If I'm eating food, I drop something, I'll just catch it underneath. Like, it's just, well, it's your instinct in it. You don't think to do that. And yeah, the salt shaker just fell on its side, and I went to catch it before it tipped over, and just went bang, like whoosh, just floored me. Just boom, back's gone. And I remember another one. all I did is put the wok. So again, it's another cooking one. But I put the wok up on top of the cupboard. All I did is reach up, and that was like someone just thrown a pan of hot water on the back of my leg. Just set this sciatica rock right down my leg. Boom! I was just on my face, man, and crawled down the stairs to get to my bedroom was downstairs. Crawled down the stairs to get in bed, and again, just agony, you know. So yeah, just horrible things. That was the first year. Then there was another year as well. So it was 2 years in the hole. I wasn't, he still wasn't even close to training after 2 years of this. So I should go over immediately what I did in terms of trying to make plans and I'll
Yeah.
give you a time scope first. So there was this couple of years. Then there was the third year where I was making improvements and I was able to like jump on the bag, boxing, hit the bag and stuff like that. And you know, even by the end of that year, I was jumping into a boxing gym but I was doing limited stuff. I was just doing stuff to stay very safe and mostly bag work still and a little bit of sparring, but nothing crazy with the sparring. But at that point, I'd train and then there was so many setbacks. It was just insane how many setbacks I'd have, you know. And again, when you're in this situation, and people watching will know, it just saps away your hope and your belief that you can come back. You know, when that is your recent history, there's no evidence to show you that you're ever going to get out. So you're just looking at what's happening. And you think, well, how is this the case? You know, like how am I going to get out of this if this is just keeps going on and on and on? I'm just stuck in this loop. Yeah. So
That's
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But yeah, that's like the evidence of having hope and having like inspiration and belief that you can get out of it. It's kind of like why I wanted to have this video. So I'm hoping this hits the right audience because yeah, when you're in it and all of your evidence and momentum is just in that negative downward spiral and you're having those dark depressive thoughts that you're never going to get out of this pain and maybe you're even going to professionals too and they're telling you to accept your new limitations or you're never going to be able to do XYZ again. Yeah, it's really sad and it's frustrating and I'm glad that you didn't latch onto that forever and I didn't either and we're living proof that you can get out of this. Like this isn't forever because your story gets a whole lot better. I don't know if you want to transition into that yet, or if you had anything else on your dark ages that you wanted to share.
No, no, yeah. The story does get a lot better. So, like, yeah, you know, I really do hope this helps people because, like I said at the beginning, I, I never had anything like this as someone in my area, you know. And I will say a few more things on that, and then we'll come to the good stuff. But, yeah, what I do with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, just as a small tangent there, like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, mixed martial arts, it's so demanding on your body. There's so many different things that you do.
Mm.
So with jiu-jitsu, you you this you use all of the motion of the spine. It's so dynamic. You know, you twist up, like if you invert, you virtually curve and you've got your own hips stacked on top of your head. You invert and use your feet on people to spin and like and look to take different grips and move them around and stuff like that. And they're putting top pressure on you. So you've got pressure on your curved spine as you're spinning underneath people. Like you can't imagine doing something like that again when brushing your teeth is a problem. Or you know. So it's like, how am I going to get back to that? You know, when I can feel this pressure in my discs in my back. You know, how am I going to get to that? It's, you know, so you lose your belief. And I've got to say, like through that dark time, it was as bad as you can get. It was for me. It was yeah. I've kind of I've lost my life here, and all I am is I'm just taken away from other people. So I'm going to get myself out of the equation. You know that was the level of thought, which is very dark. You know, it's very and but again, I say that it's because I'm sure when you first have this kind of injury and you're stuck in that hole, other people are going to be feeling the same. You feel the same. No, it just takes the joy out of your life if you can't. You know, if you especially, you know, it doesn't matter what age you are, I suppose, but it takes away. You, it's one of those things. What do they say? They say you don't know what it's got till it's gone, and it's especially like that with health. You know, when how bad is it? Just you know, when you got a cold and you're all jacked up, you're snotty and you feel horrible. You got that headache. You can't go and work, but you can't enjoy yourself at home either. You're like, oh, you're just waiting for this thing to be over. It's like, how bad is my life when when you're ill? It's garbage. And then you think of people who are seriously ill for long periods of time. You think, God, man, I need to be grateful for for the things I've got. I'm healthy. Oh, you could be a billionaire, but if you're unhealthy, you would trade every single penny, everything you've got, all the money for health, wouldn't you? Because it's the number one thing. And and then when you're young and when you're an athlete, or just when you want to enjoy your life as it is, whether you're not an athlete, when you've got something like this that just stops you from being able to do day-to-day tasks, enjoy normal things, like just go and have a kickabout in the park, play with your kids or your grandkids, picking them up. It's just stuff like this. You can't even do stuff like that, or you keep getting put back in pain. It's just such a dampener on everything. It really is depressing. So yeah, it's just one of those. It's just an horrible thing. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. So with the sport that I do, it's incredibly dynamic. So yeah, it's this'll help. I'll segue now to kind of what I did and what I looked for. What was my immediate plan?
Yeah,
So, and I'll put a side note there in there too. I was very lucky to have the family that I had at the time that allowed me to rest for as long as I needed, really, until I was able to start working again. They were great. My auntie and uncle, I don't think they knew how bad my mindset was at all. Um, I just kind of locked myself away in my room and tried to not impose it on, push it on other people. Um, but yeah, they were there for me and allowed me all that time, and then my partner as well, who was just a rock, absolute rock for me. She was there for me every step of the way. She is now. And when I had lost she put up with me at my worst, and she also believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, which is an unbelievable thing, And she's like that now. She's like that now. So I've got to say, the people around you, you need them when you're going through something like that as well. You really do. And I'm incredibly grateful. Incredibly grateful for yeah for the people that were around me and for her as well during that time, for sure. Yeah.
absolutely. That's so huge. Yeah, the support, and it's cool how grateful you are for all of that too. And I love what you said a couple minutes ago about, yeah, there's a saying, it's the healthy person wants a million things, but the sick person wants one thing, and that's to be healthy. And then when you're in the trenches like that, that's all that matters. That's all you can think about. Um, but yeah, you were in there for a long sorry. You were in there for a long time. It was like 4 or 5 years before you could really get back into full grappling, jujitsu, and then getting back into MMA type training, which the training camp that you've been through is insane. Like you're training multiple times a day, like harder than Marine style, and doing multiple sports, multiple sessions a day, and it's all just so taxing and demanding on your back. Like some of your wrestling sessions and your hour-long jujitsu rolls with other black belts are just crazy. And since we've been working together for 5, 6 months, um, yeah, like just seeing how you've progressed and what you've been able to do with your body is so inspiring and so cool. So yeah, do you want to share a little bit about kind of like on your way out, kind of what you were doing and then how you got better, and then maybe some of the work we've done here over the last couple of months?
I was thinking before, yeah, I need to talk about kind of my action plan of when it happened. So, and now the progression of what we did. So, yeah, during that first year when it first happened, I thought, right, you're in this desperate spot, so you need to try to find other people who have been in that situation, or you need to know if it's possible to come back. You're in that lost zone, this abyss of uncertainty. So immediately I start looking up who are the back experts, and I find Stuart McGill. So Stuart McGill is just he's the man. He's the man when it comes to back health. He's been doing it for decades and decades. He's got an insane amount of research out there and loads of scientific documentation and books for people. He's just been he's huge for the industry. So I found this guy and I thought, right, thankfully I have something here. I have something. So I read all of his, as much of his work as I could. I do, mate. Cheers. I read as much of his stuff as I could and started to implement it straight away, So much of that is really helpful, and it's the foundation of how things progress, So he has concepts of like bracing your back when you move, to avoid flexion. That's incredibly helpful. You first got that acute injury, and it's unstable. You've blown a disc out and you bend, you're going to cause way more pain, And I should say as well, so for me, I bulged 4 discs in my back, and I should have stated that immediately, But yeah, 4 discs in my back, 3 in my lumbar, and then 1 in my thoracic. And I was told as well, so visited loads of experts, and I was told that I shouldn't continue. Actually, the one in my thoracic, it was abutting the spinal cord. They actually said, you need, whatever you've done to do that injury, you need to not do it anymore because you could paralyze yourself. This is what the orthopedics are saying. Now, they asked me, we need to put it on record what you're going to do. Do you think you're going to continue? I said, I'm definitely going to continue if I am able to. It's my life. So they're like, all right, well, you've said that, so we've got that on record. We've advised you. It's like, and that was, yeah, that was during my maybe 2nd or 3rd year after, all the scans and all the stuff. Maybe in my 2nd year. Yeah, definitely. It could have been sooner than that, actually, but it's beside the point. But yeah, so coming back to Stuart McGill, the concepts he has, like the big 3 exercises, fantastic exercises, like really good. Limited movement. You're not flexing your back. You can keep in a stable position and build strength around it. A lot of his stuff is about, if you've got this injury and instability, build stability. So there's less movement, so things will settle down. But what I found, I think that's fantastic for weightlifters and, people who are lifting weights and want to be strong. And there's a lot of the stuff in his book shows that's the way out. And at the time I was thinking, well, yeah, I'm not a weightlifter though, even though now I've found the value of lifting and getting strong, immensely. But he also brought back that guy. He was a world-class powerlifter, like world record holding powerlifter. And he helped bring him back. I think he'd split his sacrum. And the guy was in, again, like the worst position ever, from world champion to absolutely nothing, can never do anything again. And by some serendipitous meeting, he met someone who knew McGill. They got together. Not only did he bring him back, but he brought him back to break his own records, set records again. So that's an unbelievable story. So you look at this and you go, right, this guy, he's seen people in my position even worse, and he's brought them out. So this is the guy. And I put him up on this pedestal. And so from my own experience now, this was useful, but it also limited me in a way. So I don't want to be critical of Stuart McGill. Part of my kind of how I think is you've got to appreciate those that come before you and their work. Something I think of often is we stand on the shoulders of giants. You stand on the shoulders of giants, and that's how things progress throughout time. So for me, I just come from a place of gratitude for that before me, or otherwise I wouldn't be where I am. So even if you find things that maybe don't quite line up, or maybe you think is not 100% on the mark, you think, I actually think, because we develop technology and we find out new things over time, and then we can adjust, can't we? And it's just the same in every scenario in life throughout society. Societally we do that. We do that in our development of science. We do it in virtually every industry ever. That's what we do. We stand on the shoulders of giants. All athletes, that's what you do. You get trained by a former athlete who reached certain levels, and then you surpass father to son. It's the same thing. That's what it is. So you come from a level of appreciation, and probably the education, the level of knowledge on back health now wouldn't be where it was if he wasn't here. So he's brilliant, and also I wouldn't want to even my findings, if I'm going to kind of say I don't think that was it lined up fully with what I found for myself. This is only my interpretation of his work too. I've been reading his book, but maybe it was a misinterpretation. If I had him working with me every day, he probably it would have been different. Maybe it could have been a lot different. So he's not here to speak. So I don't want to criticize him at all. I just want to come from that angle. But I did find he one of his things is about he's kind of against stretching a little bit. So he says you don't want looseness, you want stability and tightness to save this movement in your back. And he says, if you want to be athletic, keep tight hamstrings. That's actually good. You don't want loose hamstrings if you're a sprinter, which makes sense. It definitely when you say that, it does make sense. But for me, in jiu-jitsu where so much flexibility is needed and movement is needed, that's kind of, yeah, it doesn't make too, it doesn't line up fully, I don't think. So with me, I actually followed his rule. I put him up on this pedestal and I just completely followed it. I didn't stretch for about a year, which is a long time. It's a long time. This is like, yeah, this could be the second year in, it could be the second year in. And I ended up after a long time, I ended up stretching him. When I stretched, it was insane. It felt like I hadn't eaten food for a year and I ate for the first time. I was like, what? It was like something I needed. I had this emotional reaction. I thought, I can't not do this again. I need to stretch. That's clearly a part of this. I need to stretch. And I used to always stretch anyway, I'm fairly flexible for my size and really enjoy stretching. So yeah, that was one. So there's a few things that don't fully line up. And another thing as well is but so much of his work like got me a lot of the way there, like really helped me. But I would say you need to find out and investigate for yourself. Don't just take others' words completely for it. And I'd say that's a general rule in life as well. Don't just take someone else's word for it. You need to experiment and discover yourself for yourself as well. You should always be inquisitive and critical and curious to find things out for yourself, put things to the test, definitely. So one thing that ended up limiting me. So this was a kind of became a self-limiting belief in a way. His works, they helped me so much. I built a lot of stability and I got a lot of the way there. It helped me a lot. But what I found happened was in one of his books, he actually speaks about working with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu guys. And he says in there, they're almost always tall guys and they've almost always got bulges in the lower back, backward, outward bulges because there's so much flexion. And he actually says, these guys, he's worked with them and they basically need to accept their new limitations. That's one of the lines that's in his book. So that for me, because I put him up on this pedestal and I was, you're trying to find a way to believe that you can get out.
Yeah, that's a definite for what you're trying to do, like accepting your limitations with flexion. And because in jiu-jitsu and MMA, your neck snapped down so much, and that's just part of the sport and part of the game. And yeah, when he gets like again, like I don't want to discredit any of his work because I use a ton of his stuff, and it's like he's kind of the guy when it comes to like back pain research, and he's done so much for the space. But yeah, things like that are a little discouraging, and I'm glad you didn't settle for that and kept going.
Yeah, no, exactly. It was tough. Like he's brilliant. Yeah, he created machines that even like he could model the spine and replicate herniations in the back and stuff like that. It's just amazing stuff. Absolutely amazing. Like groundbreaking scientific approach, and he's helped so many people. And like you say, a lot of the modern stuff now, it is all built upon it. That's where it started. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful for all of that. And I needed those stepping stones to get to where I am now, certainly. But yeah, that became a bit of a limited belief for me, and I would say for a while, probably for those first couple of years. And yeah, because for me, if this is the guy, he's the guy who's going to get me out of here. But he said specifically for my sport, I need to accept my limitations. Only do it on competition day. That's what he said. It's like, well, in jiu-jitsu, you need to train every day. You need to be in guard. You need to be throwing up triangles. You've got to train every day to stay sharp and continue to sharpen and improve. You can't just wait till competition day to throw up your your techniques because you're trying to save your back. You can't do that. So yeah, that was a tough one. But from McGill, you bounce and try lots. I tried lots of different things. There's a Swedish fella. It's yoga for BJJ for Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and yeah, he's quite big in the UK. And I know people who know him. I trained at a gym where people knew him there, and I remember reaching out to him because he came from back pain. So I spoke to him, and he actually herniated two discs in his lower back, had a horrific back injury. And he was good. He spoke to me and just said, dude, just hang in there. You can get out of it. You can get out of it. It's going to take it's going to take a lot of effort and time. It's going to take more time than you want. But they were good. They were great words. And that's more or less what I'd say to other people as well. It's like, this is a really crappy thing, terrible thing to happen to you. And it's going to, it's not going to be a quick fix, but hang in there and put in the work and you get out. And for me, it was a total of 5 years. If I knew what I knew now, I could have. Who knows? I could probably done it in a fraction of that time, but that's how it goes. And so hopefully this, in this very sporadic way of my speaking, hopefully this can help people, give people some hope. And thankfully now we've got the internet and people like yourself out there who, yourself, the cutting edge stuff, the cutting edge stuff, or the most cutting edge um, concepts on the body. And you've been through this yourself too. You've got your own. You've done it. You've been through it and done it yourself also. And now you're helping people like this. Like if I had had you from day one, who knows how quick I would have come back. So yeah, thankfully, you're out there and you're helping people. Because yeah, you went around back then. You went around back then. I was Google searching everywhere and I couldn't find anyone. So yeah,
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 thank you. That's yeah, I mean, yeah, I took inspiration from a lot of guys too, and yeah, that's what I'm hoping to. That's how who I'm hoping to catch with this video and hope it hits the right crowd because I think like both of us could have used this when we were in those early days, especially just having hope, knowing it's going to take a while, but the journey is worth it. Um, and then yeah, I want to kind of go into what you just did here and what you did in Serbia in February, and then kind of like what your training has looked like, and like how you felt doing it because you competed in two like world's amateur fights, which for someone with the back pain that you described at the beginning of this video is just out sounds crazy. Um, but yeah, maybe I'll put up a picture here if I have one from watching your fight. Uh, but yeah, do you want to kind of talk about what you just did and like how you're feeling now and what your plans are?
absolutely. So yeah, so it's been, yes, from the age of 23 and that 5 year injury, and then coming back to health. And now I've competed, so I'm 29. Last year I did have a Thai boxing match. So I'd before we got together and started working, I'd done a lot of, all those years. I'd educated myself a lot and I'd done a lot of work and I got myself to a really good point, but it was still leagues away from what I needed, to be able to still grapple. So that was still like a huge thing. I was like, am I going to be able to do jiu-jitsu? I'd try and roll and I'd be written off for a while. And I'm thinking, oh God, it's I'm so far from being able to do jiu-jitsu properly. And obviously that's a huge part of MMA, so let alone wrestling as well. So the grappling side of things not even close. But at least I could strike. In Thai boxing, you can stay pretty much upright. There's a lot of rotation. You get your core strong. You kick in. You get your legs and your hip flexors strong. So in terms of it's like very dynamic and tough sport. Um, but in terms of what you're doing there, it's a lot different from jiu-jitsu, with just so much flexion and movement of the spine and hips. So I got myself last year. I competed early last year in March, and I took a fight, and I just wanted to jump in and just find out. After all that time, I wanted to make up for lost time. So I just jumped in against a guy who'd had twice as many Thai boxing fights as me. If you count MMA, I'd had more fights than him, but he was more experienced Thai boxing. It was a good match. He was a tough guy. So I jumped in for a title, an amateur title fight against him, and it was tough. He was catching my kicks and sweeping me, putting me on the ground. He'd won a few rounds. I was behind, but I managed to catch him and cut him up and get the stoppage there. So that was a great way to return. Um, so I had that fight, but then I was still like, how am I going to get to MMA? Because that's really I don't want to leave this. I don't want to be defeated by this injury. I want to, I've come this far. I want to get all the way. I want to find out and see how far I can go. So that was still the plan. Then caught up with you. Caught up with you in September last year. So from there, the work that we've done, it's like exponential. The gap that we've covered in such a short amount of time has been phenomenal. And now, like you say, with Serbia, I've managed to compete in MMA. I've just competed in MMA. So we did this, and it was yeah, it was brilliant. And the comp was, it was good. It was really, it was exactly what I wanted. It was throwing myself in the fire just to find out. It was pretty crazy as well, taking it on board. But the way the way it all lined up, I thought, because with the IMF competitions in Bahrain when I was 23, I figured even back then I thought, right, I've done a lot as an amateur now. This will be my last go, and then I'll go pro. But then I hurt myself, so I had all this time. So I'm still an amateur this late, this late. And I thought, right, well, I've had the Thai boxing match, and I'll go for one more of these, this amateur world championship. competition. For those who don't know, it's yeah, the IMAF. It's the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation. It's the World Championships for amateur mixed martial arts, kind of like the Olympics for MMA. You know, you got like all these nations that do MMA. They send the best guys. You know, that usually qualify, and yeah, they compete in all these weight divisions to find the world champion. So yeah, it's a great competition. It's great for amateur fighters if you want to flesh out and experience lots of different types of fighters from all around the world. So it's a really cool way to do things. And yeah, I've got some great experiences there. I had 4 fights in Vegas in 2016 and took a bronze for Australia, the first Aussie athlete to get a medal on the world stage, which is pretty cool. And then Bahrain, I competed in Bahrain, I had a couple of fights there. And then, so now just done Serbia. And this was wild because we'd just gotten back to health and you'd got me back to being able to grapple and to a point where I was doing jiu-jitsu twice a day, you know, again. And so, but I only did about a month of jiu-jitsu. And, and a month of jiu-jitsu after 5 years off or whatever, you know, not being able to train properly or, yeah, more or less 5 years. That's pretty, you know, you don't get sharp, you know, you don't get back to where you need to be, let alone sharpen my skills back up to where they need to be, but also modernize because the game's changed a hell of a lot in that amount of time. So in that training, I'm like, whoa, actually I'm far more rusty than I thought I was. And these guys that have learned, they're actually so much better in these positions than I even expected as well. So I lowered my expectations for myself a lot and then found that I was still way lower than even that. So to take this fight was wild because it was like, well, my grappling's not even close. I'm able to do it now, but I need a long time of grappling to get back to where it was. But I just figured, you know what? I'm going to jump in there. My striking's pretty sharp. I'm going to jump in there. I want to find out baptism by fire, find out where I'm at. And I was actually saying I want to fight a Russian in the snow out in Serbia, you know, in the middle of Serbia. That's what I wanted to do. And yeah, so I end up in that competition. It was great because yeah, I won my first one. I ended up winning by TKO on the first fight. And then I came up against the Russian guy, the big scary Russian guy with a wrestling, the Russian wrestling style. That's what I wanted to find out. You know, that heavy grappling style. Even though I wasn't sharp for my grappling, I wanted to experience that so I know what to do in the future. And it's exactly what I got. I ended up losing against this guy. He ended up becoming he's the world champion now. He ended up winning the whole thing, and he, you know, really good. Even watching him, we watched the American Division One wrestlers. They're the guys to watch out for as well. We watched this guy shooting on the mat, so fast, so athletic. Thought, God, you know, this guy can wrestle. This will be an interesting match then. And frustratingly, my guy had a bye too, so I just fought, and then he had a bye, and
Yeah.
then the second fight he come up against the Division One wrestler and thought, right, here we go. This is gonna show us who's who's gonna be up there to win this thing. And he just mauled this guy. He just mauled even the American. You know, it was like chest to chest, sacrifice throws, and just all over him, out scrambling him. It was a good fight, but he out grappled this guy. So it's like, yeah, this guy's good, really good, you know. And actually, this Russian, he represented Bahrain, and these guys are beasts. They fund it. They put a lot of money into it. They virtually win almost every weight class. You know, they did this time. They have a serious team that they train, 3 times a day. They fly in the best guys in the world to coach and stuff. These guys are beasts. They're there to win gold every time, you know. So they're the guys to beat. That's who I wanted to fight. That's what I got. For me, it's a total win because I've come away and I'm pumped. I'm motivated, you know.
Yeah.
After all the time, sometimes you have some doubts. You just come back and think, oh, I've lost a lot. I've lost a lot of time, but no. None of that matters to me. I just want to see how far I can go, and I'm excited to train, you know. So, so yeah, now even since the fights now, like since that, I've got a lot of time I can spend on grappling now, and that's my goal. I'm just going to sharpen, get my grappling. Next time I fight, my grappling be sharp as hell. You know, it's not going to be like it was rusty. My timing was out. You know, the few things with that fight, but I still nearly got him with a guillotine too. I set up a really nice choke.
I was watching
Um,
it. You were so close, and that guy was an animal. Like for the people watching the tournament, it was 32 guys in each weight class, and basically you fight every day until you win or lose. And the guy that he fought second round is this crazy huge mad Bahrain guy. So Andy won his first fight, and then the second fight was against this absolute animal who ended up winning the whole thing. And yeah, you had him in a guillotine. I was watching, and I don't know if it would have finished him. I think you think it would have now, but like watching it back, hard to say. But you did it, and just listening to you now, like you're thinking what you're thinking about today is I got to sharpen my grappling. I'm hungry again. I'm gonna get back into fighting versus, oh, how's my posture? Oh, what am I doing? How am I sitting? Like I can't reach for the salt in a certain way. Like just seeing how you're thinking today is so awesome. And it's like, I'm so glad that you got all this.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. That was a good explanation too. But yeah, you're right. Like going from that, my life's been given back to me. Like all of that stuff now, it's not even part of the equation. It's yeah, it's just a complete switch. So I'm like now I'm like athletic. I'm doing all these athletic. I'm grappling, I'm doing jiu-jitsu. I'm doing more wrestling than I used to do beforehand. You know, I wasn't mad on the wrestling. I didn't do a ton of wrestling. I was like Thai boxing, jiu-jitsu. You take me down, I'll fight you off my back. It's not the smart. It's not usually the smartest thing. I've got a bit of an anti-wrestler style, which worked for me so far, you know. But you got to wrestle if you're in MMA. You got to wrestle. I'm wrestling now. You know, I'm wrestling. I'm training. You know, last week, not my back was the problem. My legs. I trained so hard last week. 4 days, my legs just weren't working. My quads, from my knees up to my hips, just destroyed. So sore. You poke my leg, I'm almost in tears. Barely walking, just like legs buckling, wobble all over the place. Like, I haven't felt this sore. Can't remember when I felt this sore, you know? So it was like someone who's never done weight training before just hammers the hardest leg workout of all time. That's how my legs felt after after wrestling. I shouldn't say just wrestling. It's a tough sport, man. You just like snap downs, drop,
Oh.
shoot, drop, shoot. You're catching your weight so much. You know, you're American, man. Thank you very much, buddy. You're a champion. Thank you. There you go.
Yeah. And how'd the back hold up? Just so everyone knows.
Back was good. Like it was sore from workout sore. You know, it'd done a lot of work, but back was fine. So that's the beauty. The back's fine. Legs weren't. So
No, we'll
that's
keep
fine.
building that too.
The legs will get conditioned. That's right. That's right. But yeah, so now I'm wrestling, doing jiu-jitsu. Um, yeah, it's brilliant. And so when that's another thing I'll say as well. Like you kind of now have this inbuilt level of awareness, you know.
Mhm.
So you just make better decisions. And if you'd have known all the things, if I'd have knew everything I knew now, you could easily prevent these injuries. It's common stuff. Like what leads to this? What leads to this? For me, I was a young kid. I started at 15 and you growing and I didn't have like strength and stability needed to be able to do the things I was doing. I was grappling and wrestling with full grown men and just going nuts, you know, just going as hard as I could. So I'm wrestling and I'm doing jiu-jitsu and flogging myself, and my body wasn't prepared for that. So my back was just taking damage all the time. I didn't have the glutes needed to support myself. I didn't have like strong back needed to support my spine, you know. And then my habits too, on top of that, would have been terrible. Like for me, it's the common things. It's like I'm sat down right now. For me, I always say this. It always gets a laugh when I say it, but sitting is the new smoking. You know,
Mm.
I always say that it kills you. It kills you off. We are not designed to sit 8 hours a day, and we sit more than that. You work a full-time job that's in an office. You sat for 8 hours, but you drive to work, you drive home from work, and then what do you do when you get home? Usually, and you put the telly on and you watch TV, sat down, your back's like this all the time. And what happens? Your hips get tight, shorten, and then when you stand up, you've got a choice of being upright with you've got a choice of being tilted like an older person, you see them like this, because your hips are so tight, but no one does that. No one opts for that. So you straighten yourself out and you've got this anterior tilt, like your hips just like boom, tilted because your hips are so tight. If you're not doing anything to address that over a span of months and years, you're going to run into problems. Your back is not in the position it needs to be in, and you're not going to have the movement needed, are you? So it's just like all of this stuff really counts. And usually you don't know any of this before you run into a serious problem. And then that's when you learn. That's the that's the price you pay for some wisdom, isn't it? You learn the hard way, or you listen to someone who's smart, and if you're smart, or someone who's wise, and if you're smart, you heed the advice and learn from it. But it's hard to do, especially young fighters. You say, hey, be careful, young, and you look after your body. Like I'm telling people now all the time. And just look after yourself. Don't, you can train hard, but make sure you're stretching. Make sure you're addressing your mobility. Make sure you're strong. Make sure you lift weights and be strong. Strengthen all these groups. So that's the beauty of what we're done. So people now watching this, like, yeah, the stuff I need to talk about what you've done for me, man. Like we haven't gone over any of those details yet. So Yeah, first of all, the way I met you was just it was hilarious actually. So I was at that point where I was like, right, I've managed to have a striking bout. Now I'm waiting to grapple. You're all good, mate. Yeah, you're all good. Sorry, but so I'm at the point where, yeah, how do I get myself from where I'm at now, being able to strike to being able to grapple? And you might think, yeah, you might be able to get there on your own, but if finding help is really super important. Like it really, really helps. It's like now looking at it, it's like I think, well, if I'd even got there, how many years would it have taken me? I've educated myself so much, and it took so long. But yeah, man, when you source the help, you learn so much faster. You learn so much faster, and you have to go out on a limb. You have to take chances. You have to take risks. For me, I did go to so many different experts, some of them experts, and then some were good guys, but couldn't spend long enough with them. And you learn little bits here and there from different styles, but none of them, yeah, all of those took me to a certain spot. But finding the help with you've covered the whole thing, and so this is the right fit. But how we came together there, it was funny because I took the chance again with my partner, who's just rock for me. She's. I was like, oh, I work very hard. I'm a very busy guy. I work really hard. I've got a lot going on. I'm up early and I come home late, and I'm let alone training for myself and stuff like that. And I work hard for what we've got. We're not millionaires, and at the time it was very tight. I just lifted the amount of money we have. We've got a newborn. At the time I'm a newborn and stuff, and we're kind of like not a lot of spare money. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should wait till I've got a bit more money behind me. You have all these things, but she's just like, just go for it. Just go for it. We'll find a way. We always do. So she gave me that nice little push just to reach out to you and find out how to, what it would take to work with you and stuff like that. And it was very funny because I was sat right here. I've got this old laptop at work, and we were set to catch up, weren't we? It took 30 minutes to boot my laptop up. It was just a disaster. And I thought, this guy is going to tell me to go to hell, and I'm not even going to have the option. And I was just like, I was so embarrassed. I actually thought, no, well, that's that opportunity gone. I was probably just going to say, don't worry about it, mate. I was nearly going to say, don't worry about it. I've sorry about this, and just crack on. And I'm so glad there was something telling me like this guy could be the guy. This guy could be the guy. Just hold on. So I'm like, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. Please, but you were super patient and super nice guy, man. We caught up. We hit it off straight away. You waited half an hour for that first thing, which is which I'm so grateful for. I'm so glad that you had the patience for me there because yeah, because what we've done in such a short amount of time has been phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean that I remember that because it's since our time difference actually helped that a lot because it was like the last thing in my day. It was like 5, 6 p.m. my time, even though it was the morning for you. And I was like, oh, it's like, is he ever gonna join? I know you kept sorry, can you hear that in the background?
Yeah, you put out a little bit. Yeah.
Um, yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it took a while, but we got it done. And then, yeah, after you told me your story and what you wanted to get, like, I saw a lot of that in myself because I've been doing a little bit, or not nearly as much as you, but I've been doing jujitsu for 2 years now and like Thai boxing too. You actually kind of inspired me to get into that. But yeah, like I knew where you were and I knew where you wanted to get. So I was so grateful that we like got to meet and that we got you back into MMA fights. And we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep having you get back to world champ or get you amateur worlds, pro, whatever you have next. We're here for it.
Awesome. No, that's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Personally, yeah. Again, we've had a lot of chats. We spoke a lot, but yeah, just want to thank you, man, for everything you've done. Because it's been phenomenal. Yeah, I should go over some details, just how helpful it is. So like, I'm a pretty driven person. Pretty self. I can be pretty self driven. I can decide to do something and get my mind to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you put more work like one problem I have with clients is that they miss workouts or oh they have all these excuses and then like when they don't see the results I'm like well you're not doing the work like what do you expect like we put this plan together we've been talking about it but I don't think you've ever missed a workout. I don't think you've ever complained about a single thing. Even like when for like the founder press, for example, you even misunderstood and did like a version that was 8 times harder than I had in mind. You're like, oh, that was tough, but I did it, man. Like, I'm like, what did you do? Um, but yeah, like even that, like on top of your training, your work, your family, like you're incredibly busy, but you make time for it. You have the warrior mindset, and I know you're gonna keep killing it in MMA, and you're gonna get to the next level because you just have that switch and you have that gear, and you've been awesome to work with. Like you complete everything above and beyond, and like you do the work. Like I can't, like we can put together the perfect plan, but if you don't do the work, it won't you won't get there, and you've done it every step of the way. So it's like most of the credit goes to you. Like you've done everything.
Oh, no, well, thank you so much for that. And yeah, I know, I only know like you're 100% right. You've got to do the work. It's the same with anything in life. It's absolutely the same. You can't do nothing and expect results. You can't do the same mediocre thing and expect better results. You've got to change it up. But I only know that as well. That's just the thing that assisted me is I used to do that. I used to go to physio when I was younger and barely do the exercises, and and not make the improvement. It took me a lot. Like this is when I was like a younger kid, so that if you don't do the work, you're not going to improve. And I realized that myself. It's like, yeah, I'm putting in a lazy effort, and then when I start putting in the effort, you see. So it's just yeah, you've got to do the work. And yeah, we absolutely hammered these workouts, and that thing about the founder press is funny because that was wrecking me. It was so tough. We were doing 12 reps of these things, but yeah, the reps were insane. And
Yeah,
then, but what was great is we kept them in because I'd managed them. They would
yeah,
ruin me. They were the toughest thing.
you
It
managed to
ruined.
do it, and then when you showed me what it looked like, I was like, oh my gosh, you did 12 reps of that, and like I've even incorporated that variation into my own workout sometimes because it's so hard and so grueling. And yeah, the fact that I mean, it's so impressive. And like you don't really have like a super high weightlifting background, so a lot of the strength work we were doing is kind of new, but you went into it head first and like excelled. Like your progression was just so fast, and what we were able to accomplish in just 3 months to get you ready, and what we can even do after this is exciting and hopefully inspiring to the viewers as well.
That's it, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to what you're doing in the future. I was going to say before, is like, yeah, I'm pretty, got a strong will and I'm pretty self-driven. I can and motivated. I can get my mind to things. But even with that, you have your moments of like one of the biggest elements of having you there. It's like you've been in my corner. It's like having a coach there to reassure you when you need it, and to hold you accountable as well. That's one of the giant elements of this. Like and that's not even counting the all the brain work that you've put into this. Like there's so many. Like your life is so busy. If we had all the time in the world to focus on one thing, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be difficult to become world class at something, but we've got all these other things. You're working, you've got family life balance, you've got your nutrition, and then your actual training. Like we've just got like, and that's just speaking about my scenario. But whatever situation you're in, you've got all these elements of life that you've got to balance. So people in the fighting game, say, or any athletic game, they'll hire a nutritionist just to take care of that nutrition. So that's one less thing you need to worry about. But, oh, right. So now I've got more resources to allocate to these important elements, 4 important elements. So for someone like this is when you've injured yourself as well and you've got serious injuries and the back is so complex. That's why it takes so much to overcome. It's like such a complex thing. Structure. It's an unbelievable structure and how dynamic and it's like it's just unbelievable what it's capable. It holds the spinal cord. It's
Mm-hmm.
born and then gel and born and then gel. And there's a guy wire system of muscle that can make it incredibly rigid, so you can lift insane amounts of weight, but then it can flex and go an insane amount of movement as well. It's an unbelievable structure, and all the muscles how they relate to it. Your hip flexors, your glutes, your abs, your obliques, all the intricate muscles and how it all contributes. Your hamstring. It's like, and it was funny because we would fix something, but then as we're fixing something, other things would start playing up a little bit. It's like, oh, now this problem's coming, being fixed. These are showing up. The weaknesses of these showing up. So we fix these, fix this, fix this. It was kind of like it was like this, but then the whole time everything's being elevated. Everything's being elevated. And that's one thing I'd say too. So you still have setbacks. You're still gonna have setbacks. You're gonna occasionally tweak yourself. It's usually me being silly, like being late for a sparring session. So I rush there, don't do a proper warm up. Well, if you don't warm up properly, you can injure yourself anyway. So I had little setbacks, but the good thing is I'd have a setback, and it's just a matter of a couple days of being a bit jacked up, need to rest, and then springing back. By the end of the week, I'm like, it's like nothing ever even happened, which is unbelievable because a setback like that to me a couple of years ago, even a year ago, would be way worse. But like a year, 2 years ago, it could be like weeks or months. In the early days, it'd be months. I remember I'd hurt myself once, and then for 3 months, I still wasn't right. This new sort of pain was there for 3 months later. It's like from one setback. So, but now it's like 2 days. So it gives me so much confidence again, more confidence to try and keep pushing myself. Because it's one of those crazy things. You've regained this ability, and then there's a psychological block of I don't want to be in that situation again. But as and then you're trying to train and push yourself to your limits, and you are pushing yourself to your limits, and you have got to be switched on, but it's doable. It's very, very doable. You just got to be switched on for it. But
Completely.
yeah, that's a sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to talk about the setbacks quick. And yeah, that's something that you handled extremely well too. It was like, okay, like describe it to me what happened, and you let me know. And then I was like, okay, like we've built past what could make this a really bad problem. So yeah, like you said, the setbacks just get shorter and shorter and less frequent. And so I think we maybe had, I don't know, like two decent ones in 4 months, and both of them, yeah, you got out of right away. Like it was basically just a blip, and especially with the kind of training you were doing too. Like I'm grateful there weren't more because some of your workouts and some of the things you told me had me a little nervous. Like some of your sparring sessions and getting into the basically military like camp to get ready for your fight was, yeah, I was a little nervous at first, but I mean, you did the work, so you held up, and everything everything came together. So yeah, I want to be respectful of your time here too. I got to run here in a minute. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up?
I appreciate that, but we've actually just got a few people. We've got people coming in now. My friend here is going to teach a class, so I'm going to be getting kicked out in a second. But yeah, I just want to say that there's a lot more. Definitely a lot more we could speak about, and we probably should do this again. We've had quite a few conversations. Said, oh, we should have recorded that. We should have recorded this because it would be
Yeah.
helpful. So I'd definitely like to do this again, and I think I'd be a bit more condensed with the way I speak, as well, very well. I've dragged us over our a lot of times, so many times, because of the way I sporadically speak. That's kind of my style. I wish I could just bullet point and get everything condensed and nice and easy. We could have done this in 10 or 20 minutes, But what I would say is just like to highlight what you do. Yeah, it's like with your level of experience, what you've been through, you've actually been there and done that. You've dragged yourself out of the hole yourself, like in a horrible situation, being young and in early 20s in that situation. Then the knowledge that you're applying now, like cutting edge, up to the minute, most updated scientific way to do things, and most updated the newest and most effective concepts on how to fix yourself, and understanding on how the back works. Again, standing on the shoulders of all of the giants before you. What you actually offer people, what you give to people is just amazing. If I had met you on that in that early stage within the first year, who knows? I could have been back in such a short amount of time. And what I'd like to say is, like, I consider myself like a mentally tough and a driven person, but even then you have your doubts. You focus on so many other elements, and it's difficult to educate yourself and to plan and then stick to a plan. But what you do is you do all of that work for me. You put all the brain power in. You hold me accountable to what I'm doing too, and we could communicate and catch up so often. And every little blip, every little problem, something I don't understand, something I don't know, you were right there to tell me what it was. And we bounced ideas off each other, which is great too. So we kind of, we both, like, even sometimes, we were like, we're both looking at other things and go, hey, look at this, check this out, and we updated what you kind of came up together a little bit with it. We're both learning too, which was pretty cool. So yeah, just brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and infinitely grateful for what you've done for me. So thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah, this has been so fun for me too. Like this journey and seeing you get better. Like that's why I started this whole mission. So I'm really glad that I could help you too. And yeah, if we would have met 4 years ago, I was just fixing my own problems. So I don't know if I would have been able to help you then. But yeah, I guess with what I know now, hopefully we can keep cutting down on people's pain recovery time and get them back into more MMA fights like you.
100%. That's it. Yeah, and yeah, people listening. If there's one thing you can say, if you're in that early stages and you're in a bad spot, just hold on to some hope, man. It is doable. There are people who have done it. So yeah, have a look at those that have done it and find out for yourself. You just hold on. You can get there. Just stay tough.
Great. Well, I don't know how long it's been, but this has been fun. Um, I'm gonna stop the recording here in a minute, but really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll catch up soon. Of
No problem. Sounds great. Thanks very much, Ben.
course.
Good stuff.